Since Breath of the Wild came out, redoing many of the main staples of the Zelda series, focusing entirely on open world gameplay, the main question was, how will the next game live up to it? Will it expand upon the original or go in a completely new direction? Well, 4 years ago they announced that the new Zelda would be a sequel to Breath of the Wild, and now 6 years after its release it has finally arrived. But does it live up to the delay, or is it just more of the same Zelda we have been playing? This review will mostly be a first impressions look at the game, though there will be some spoilers for the gameplay and basic story. If you want me to do a full review later, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, comment below what you like most about the game. Unlike Breath of the Wild, which starts off letting you go anywhere, starting with the Great Plateau section being moderately short, Tears of the Kingdom ends up having a very long, story-heavy starting section being entirely in the clouds, making you follow the story before you can go to Hyrule. The main new addition to Tears of the Kingdom is the building system. All over Hyrule are random parts that you can stick together, with some of them containing power that lets them move on their own. This power only lasts a short amount of time, meaning you need to either increase the amount of energy you can keep at once, or refill it with charges. You can also get parts added to your item menu as a one-use item by going to the gacha machine and trading energy charges for random parts. The biggest problem I have with this is that some of the parts are very inconsistent with how much power they use. For example, the rockets last way less than the other parts, and you can't recharge them. I also think it would be nice to get reusable parts, or be able to put parts in your item menu for later, since there are areas that have no ways of getting anything. The other addition is fusing, which lets you combine weapons with items. One of the major complaints of Breath of the Wild was that weapons broke too easily, and that you could find high level weapons everywhere, so the game became trivial. Tears of the Kingdom is significantly harder now, due to how most of the weapons are all rusted and fairly weak, requiring you to fuse weapons together to make them stronger. Unfortunately, in terms of durability, a lot of them still break very quickly, with some weapons lasting longer than others. Along with that, throwing the weapon still breaks them instantly no matter what weapon you use. I wish they did more to avoid the durability issues, like let you upgrade the weapons to make them break less, or add something to them that stops them from breaking for a certain amount of time, instead of only letting you use certain items that are harder to break. Due to how much weaker the weapons are, when you attempt to fight a boss, you end up using way more weapons than before. In one of the fights, I had a full set, but only barely managed to beat it before all mine broke. It would be nice if there was a temporary weapon you could use when the rest have been broken. Like in Breath of the Wild, the main form of content is going to shrines and collecting Korok seeds. The shrines are now in completely new places compared to the last game, as with the Korok seeds as well. The way you find Koroks is very different this time, with some of them needing to be carried to a certain spot so it can meet other Koroks. This ends up netting you multiple Korok seeds in comparison to just getting one, though it does take longer to complete. Instead of being in Deku Forest, Hestu is now all over Hyrule, and in order to use the seeds you have to track him down using clues. Though once you find him you can only use a few seeds at a time before he moves to a new location. As for the shrines, similar to Breath of the Wild, some are okay or pretty good, while others are completely pointless. Instead of having to test the strength shrines, now they have tutorial shrines which let you practice and learn moves against robots. The problem is a lot of these tutorials contain moves you probably already have learned, making them very boring and trivializing the difficulty. As for the puzzle shrines, most of them are centered around the building mechanic. I wish they included more traditional puzzles instead of having them all be around the same put a hook on a plate puzzle for every dungeon, since it gets very repetitive after a while. The shrines also have the problem of some of them being very easy to beat by cheesing it. For example, there was one where you had to go on some rails, but it was very easy to just run on the rails to the end instead. Story limitations are a lot worse in this game than Breath of the Wild. At one point I managed to get to one of the temples before the story wanted me to, but because I didn't have the right item, I couldn't get anywhere in the dungeon unless I continued the story, and got to the point where the game thought I was ready. Speaking of dungeons, this was the one area where Tears really needed to do well. Breath of the Wild's Divine Beasts, to most people, were very boring, and the Blight bosses being very generic and samey. For the dungeons and Tears, it's a mixed bag. For starters, as I said earlier, there is a lot of pre-story in order to get to the dungeon, with you having to go back and forth talking to people to find clues to get to the sky. Like in Breath of the Wild, the main goal of the water temple is to turn off a load of switches in order to free the tear and solve the problem. This can be done very quickly if you know what you're doing, only containing a couple of puzzles and then hitting the switch. The entire dungeon is also out in the open, meaning that in terms of design, the architecture is very limiting. In comparison to the ancient system, which looks drastically different to the overworld, the water temple is very similar to the other islands next to it, not really giving it that dungeon feel. The bosses, on the other hand, are far better than the Divine Beasts, with it using a unique design and moveset to that dungeon, and being pretty difficult to beat. In order to beat it, you have to use Sidon's help blowing water onto it. Like I said earlier, by the time I beat it, I barely had any weapons left. This was a pleasant surprise due to the bosses in Breath of the Wild being meh. I also heard that there are more unique bosses outside the dungeons as well, though I haven't found any yet. Side quests in Tears of the Kingdom are far better than in Breath of the Wild. There are two types of side quests now. The normal side quests, which are like the ones found in Breath of the Wild, and the new side adventures. These quests are a lot more similar to previous Zelda side quests, like the ones found in Majora's Mask and Skyward Sword, with them containing unique stories and characters that you don't find in the normal game. One of the ones I liked a lot was a quest where you help out an election in Hateno Village. This quest lets you decide who you want to win, and then has you help them do tasks in order to win the election. In addition to the side quests, you can also find people that will give you clues about treasure in the area, which lets you find unique items. In one place I found someone who marked something on my map, and when I went to see what it was, I found climbing gear. The problems I still have with the game that haven't been addressed from Breath of the Wild are the treasure chests. Like in Breath of the Wild, most of the overworld chests contain mostly random disposable items like opal or weapons, which you can usually just sell for money or fuse into your own weapons. It makes it a lot less appealing to go out of your way in a shrine to get the chest, to then find out there isn't anything good in it. I would much rather there be less chests in the overworld, or them being marked based on what kind of item they have in them. They should have at least had good items in the shrines, considering how it's usually difficult to get to them. The other big issue is the rain. Like in Breath of the Wild, the rain is still annoying, making it basically impossible to get anywhere and making you have to wait until it passes. I wish they at least added some gear to make the rain slipping stop, or anything to make it not an issue since it's so annoying. So that's Tears of the Kingdom. To be fair, I basically got what I expected. When they said it was a sequel to Breath of the Wild, I was expecting more Breath of the Wild, which it is. Though I don't know why it took 6 years to do that. Hopefully the next game does something more unique, especially with it likely being on a next-gen console. I also would like them to make more 2D Zeldas as well, instead of them just being focused on one 3D Zelda. Either way, this game is good and probably is better than Breath of the Wild, but it doesn't really do much more than that, which is a shame because we spent so much time waiting for it. I guess now we wait again. Thanks for watching, make sure to like and subscribe to see more content, and also, tell me what you think about the game in the comments. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you hate the video? Did you like the video? Just tell me anything, I don't really care. Just say whatever. Bye.